Philip Henry Sheridan was a Union general in the Civil War with close ties to General-in-Chief Ulysses S. Grant himself. Grant transferred Sheridan from command of an infantry division on the Western Theater to lead the cavalry corps of the Army of the Potomac in the East. Sheridan was known for his destruction of the economic infrastructure of the valley, called the burning by residents. It was one of the first uses of scorched earth tactics in the war. And that's who we were on our way to see. Now, for those of you who don't know what scorched earth is, it's a military strategy that aims to destroy anything that might be useful to the enemy. Supplies, horses, weapons, anything. But anything useful, the advancing enemy can be targeted, including food and stores and agricultural areas, water sources, and even the local people themselves. And that's what we did. See, back when the Civil War was first fought, people would line up to watch the battles. The women, children, families would line up like it was a sporting event, watch people get hit with cannonballs and lose their legs. Well, guys like Philip Henry Sheridan were called upon by the country to change all that. They were generals that would come in and shoot the civilians watching the battles on the sideline, then burn the churches and the schools on the way through town afterward. It was the only way to win a war. The old man knew it, and so did I. This war was going to be about people trying to get richer while the country was too weak to stop them. Plantation owners, railroad barons. I had one name. That's all I needed. Teddy Brown. I knew Teddy Brown in the First War. He fought for the South. He committed the type of atrocities my unit was put together to stop. But after the war was over, they were given huge properties, plantations, given a pardon and a free pass. We got word that Teddy Brown was holed up in a fort nearby. A couple of marshals and some local militia had him surrounded.
There's the fort. We'll find the marshal. Up here. Come on. We're on the other side of this. How you getting on, Marshal?
Well, that bastard is holed up tight as he can be. I've already had 2 men shot since last we spoke.
That's too bad. Luckily, I brought in the cavalry. My associates.
Teddy Brown is a bad man.
One of the worst.
But there's folk in Blackwater, powerful folk, who asked my boss to get me to leave him alone.
I can imagine. Amos Lansing and Jeremiah Shaw, perhaps?
I don't know. Maybe. Come on.
Bring us Teddy Brown. Dead or alive.
Teddy Brown's gonna pay for this.
Threw a couple sticks of dynamite downrange, jumped on one of the long guns, and started laying waste to these savages. If there's one thing I hated, it was people trying to take advantage of the poor people. This was just another land grab, money-hungry cocksucker. He was gonna pay today. I ended up taking a position by the front gate. There was no way to tell what was inside. We had our guys on the long guns in the back. They just started laying waste to the front door, and there was no way I was going to miss an opportunity to say hello myself. So I came in and I gave them 2 Navy revolvers. Close range. I don't know what's scarier up close. A 12 gauge shotgun or a buck knife. What I gave all these guys. Every bit of both of them. I was almost to Teddy Brown. I was a headshot away. I was a dynamite throw away. I was a whip out the shotgun and go to work in the dark moment away.
What's the matter with
I stepped behind the door jam quick and took out the bolt-action rifle. I had a few rounds left. I laid one guy down, then whipped out the Navy revolver and went to work at close range. We gunned down every single person in that courtyard. The ones we couldn't shoot, we blew them up, lit them on fire, put the women and children to bed and went looking for dinner. And Teddy Brown. The fort finally fell. We took the surrounding area too, but no Teddy Brown. Him and his men had joined up with a regiment that was pushing hard in a small valley called Boulder, Glade. Teddy and his men were like a virus. They'd just pop up in small factions in another town down the road. We had to cut the head off the snake. They were holed up in this church down the end of this valley, so the plan was to shell them with artillery and then charge. There was no way around it. We had to take the church. We had to make sure that he didn't escape one more time and put an end to this once and for all. The artillery stopped for a few seconds and I made my move. I cut across the center, jumped into a trench, and then headed straight for the church. Between me and the church was a big rock, and as I came up over the top of it, I laid one guy out and then made my move. But artillery started to fire again, and then it knocked me off balance. I lost sight of anybody coming in or out of the church at that time, and then I ran toward the church to try to just make sure nobody could get out of it. By the time I got there, it was empty. After the Battle of Boulder Glade, Teddy Brown and his men fell back to a small house right on the edge of Lemoyne. They were offering terms of surrender or treaty, the usual move. Talk, waste time, and then slip out the back door. Or even worse, get pardoned, get more land, get more powerful. We received orders to stand down while the terms of his surrender were negotiated. But a commanding officer like Philip Henry Sheridan doesn't follow orders like that, and neither do I. We had Teddy Brown. We knew it would happen if we let up. He'd slip into Mexico or into a small town and just raise up another militia and start this shit all over again. It was time for it to end. The way this works is if I fail, I get disowned. If I pull it off, I probably get promoted. This is about right and wrong, good and evil. They say the only thing necessary for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. This is one of those moments. I always remember it. Ready or not, Teddy, here I come. The area they were holed up in was right outside Lemoyne. It was a swampy area. They took over a mansion, sandbagged it up, put a bunch of explosives out, and dug in like a tick. I had to wait until nightfall, so I ditched the horse and snuck into the bushes. This was only going to work because they'd never think anybody was stupid enough to try to sneak up by themselves in the dark. Yeah, I was stupid enough to sneak up by myself in the dark. Sometimes I wonder how I get myself into this shit. I figured Teddy would be on the second floor. Maybe one of the bedrooms. I don't know, that's just the way it always seems to work. They're never just wandering around out here in the open so I can pick them off. They had a couple of Maxim guns stationed kind of to the left and the center of the property. They had another one over in a gazebo. I figured if I take the guy out in the gazebo first, maybe I can take the Maxim gun and just lay down some fire for effect, disorient some people with some dynamite, that kind of thing. But you know how it never goes to plan. So while he goes to take a piss, the plan is I'm going to sneak up on this guy, knife him, turn around, take the Maxim gun, and open fire on the house. But all hell broke loose. You know that moment when you realize that your plan has gone to shit and it is absolute? You didn't know what you were doing to begin with and how you got yourself into this and how you're going to get yourself out of it, and all that stuff is running through your head as you're lobbing dynamite at a gazebo. Yeah, it was that kind of moment. So at this point, all I'm thinking to myself is I should have brought more dynamite and a new pair of underwear. Because literally, from the angle that I was pinned down at, I couldn't shoot at the guy in the deck without having somebody run up on me or somebody on the right-hand side getting an angle. I decided to stick my head out the right-hand side and see what we were looking at. And as soon as I did, I realized there was only one move. Displace. I could finally see what I was looking at, and the guy on the right had to go first. Then I could work my way toward the house. There was only one way to get close to him, though, and that was to charge. As soon as I saw that explosion, I knew I had to go. I laid out the guy on the top deck, and I was bleeding pretty bad. As I rounded the tree, I popped two more guys, and then somebody snuck me from behind. I shook loose, got up, put the boots to him, took out the Navy revolver, and laid them both down. And then it was Teddy Brown. Years I've been waiting for this. To hell with permission. To hell with orders. This is about right or wrong. He needs to go. Him and his men. This is the last stand for them. They go down tonight. Nowhere left to hide, Teddy. Ready or not, here comes Uncle Frank. One more. There you are. I was bleeding bad, but I didn't care. I closed the distance across the room and I grabbed hold of his neck, tried to pin him to the wall, but he shook me loose. I grabbed hold again and dug my thumbs into his Adam's apple, but he headbutted me and shook loose again. I dug my thumbs in as hard as I could, but he shook me loose. We both pulled our guns and I shoved it underneath his mouth and I finished it once and for all. As the shot rang out and the last one of Teddy Brown's men fell, I stood on the deck, and it was quiet. For the first time in months, it was quiet again. I thought about the ranch, and about Maggie, and about Lem, everything I'd left. But then, just like I said, I got promoted.